Welcome at Bits of Blockchain. And in today's episode, we're going to talk again about Cardano with Ronald Span. Welcome, Ronald.
Thank you, Peter.
Last time you introduced us to the Cardano blockchain. What is your subject today?
Well, today we're going to talk about Stakepool and their role basically in the network. And for the ones who are interested in running a Stakepool, they will get some information how to start with it.
Nice. I look forward to your talk. The stage is yours.
Welcome. Today I'm going to give an introduction to Cardano Stakepools and what is basically the role of a Stakepool in the Cardano network. First of all, the Cardano network did go live on August the 13th into production. The first Genesis block was written on the ledger. The network is known as Haskell main network. And currently, the network is decentralized for 68%. And that means many people from the community are running a node and producing blocks. And basically, this block producing is increasing with 2% per epoch. And we will tell a little bit later about what an epoch is. Basically, everybody can participate in the network and validate blocks with transactions. And this is known as a block validator or producer, or what we call a Stakepool. Further, relay nodes play an important role, but I will show that in the next slide. So, as we can see over here, this is basically the world, and everywhere in the world are running nodes or computers that are contributing to the network. The idea is, as a Stakepool operator, that you run several nodes. The most important is the block producer node, and next to that you have some relay nodes. And as a Stakepool operator, you have to operate, let's say, at least 3 nodes, 1 block producer and 2 relay nodes. And why relay nodes? The relay nodes are basically protecting the block producer from the outside world, or the block producer is never being exposed to the public. As you can see over here in green, there are several relay nodes, and those relay nodes basically forwarding the blocks to other relay nodes. And in case if you have a Stakepool and you have your own relay nodes, the relay nodes of yourself are basically forwarding the block to the block producer. So the only communication that is possible is between the block producer and the network is via your own relays. And those relays are shown here in red. So it's important that basically every node maintains a complete copy of the ledger and basically is forwarding this information to other relays. So we are talking about this concept where everywhere in the world several computers are communicating with each other and running nodes. Cardano is basically a second layer solution and a third generation blockchain. And most significant difference between the second layer solution is there's a separation between the unit of account or the settlement layer where the payments are being made and the smart contract layer or the contract layer or the control layer. As we can see in this overview, payments can be done between participants in a network, and this can be done on basis of a native currency ADA or via native tokens or assets, fungible or non-fungible tokens. And the fees that are being paid for executing the transactions are always done in ADA. Smart contracts on the Cardano blockchain can consist of any logic, but what is different here is that it also can recognize identity and assist on compliance issues. Smart contracts can be built in Plutus language or Haskell, the underlying programming language of the Cardano blockchain, in Marlow on basis of visual programming via Blockly, which generates underlying Haskell or JavaScript, and the KEVM, or basically the Ethereum virtual machine that is able to compile Solidity code into binary that can be executed on the Cardano blockchain. And this basically is the second layer. And there's, as such, separation of concerns. And this is something that is very important because we all know, basically in the second generation blockchain, Ethereum, which added smart contracts, all this processing is done in the same layer or in one layer. And this is causing congestion and also causing high fees. And this is something that Cardano wants to prevent. The time in the blockchain, in the Cardano blockchain, is being divided in epochs. And so the settlement layer, basically where the transactions are done, are divided in epochs. And an epoch consists of multiple slots. Every slot is taking 20 seconds. And during such a slot, a block is being assigned to a stake pool. And in total, within an epoch, there are 20,600 slots. And the time of an epoch, if you divide it by the number of seconds in a day, is basically 5 days. And that means within this 5 days, 21,600 slots, or 21,600 blocks are basically being processed by stake pools. And they are validating basically those blocks if they are syntactically correct, if they are not being tampered. And this all is done on basis of a flipping protocol. And that means at the previous epoch, at the end of the previous epoch, there is a decision being made who of the pools, stake pools in the network, are going to be assigned as leader. And leader means basically they get a block assigned to be processed and to be validated if this block is and the transactions within it are correct. So what is the role of a stake pool? The role of a stake pool is basically to settle the transactions made on a network. And for this, it keeps an immutable copy of the ledger. It processes basically the transactions that are stored in a block and digitally signed, and checks if they are valid and if they are not tampered. A block as such can contain 0 or multiple transactions. Stakepool validates and produces those blocks and is contributing basically to the decentralization and security of the blockchain. And why is that decentralization? Because it's maintaining a complete copy of the ledger. And why security? Because it's basically validating the integrity of the blocks and its transactions. So this means a stake pool plays a very important role within the network of a blockchain. And in this case, Cardano, and it should be up 24/7, 365 days a year. And this is something that the stake pool operator should take care of. Then, how does this stake pool participate in securing the network? This is on basis of stake, and that's why the protocol is called proof of stake. Every stake pool has a certain amount of ADA stored in it, and this can be by delegation or by the stake pool owner itself. And on basis of the percentage of stake, the stake pool has more chance to be elected as slot leader, or basically assigned to process a block and to validate a block. So basically there are two participants in the stake pool, and that is the stake pool owner itself that operates the infrastructure, but also pledges in the pool or stakes in the pool, and the delegators. And these are basically everyone. Everybody can participate in the network. So proof of stake, again, is having evidence that the block of transactions are legitimate, and stake is a relative value held by address on the Stakepool node. There can be multiple stake pools in the network, and all these stake pools are basically competing with each other. During a time slot, which we explained before, a block is assigned to a slot leader. And a slot leader is basically a stake pool, and the stake pool is basically validating this block. And for the creation of a block, that means adding a validated block to the chain and solving a cryptographic puzzle, it receives a reward. And so the rewards is basically being paid in ADA, and those rewards are basically shared between the stake pool owner and the participants in the stake pool. So the question is here, why would you participate in a stake pool? The reason for participating in a stake pool is, of course, when you as an individual have a certain amount of ADA, the total percent of that amount of ADA is very small in comparison to all the, let's say, all the ADA that is being delegated to the network. And that means that you have a small chance to get a reward. By putting your stake in a stake pool, you have higher chances for rewards. We saw in the schema before, there's also a relay node involved in this whole process. And basically the relay node has a few duties. One is to secure the block validator and producer from being exposed to the public. And that's of course, it's vulnerable. Somebody could try to hack into that stake pool or block producer and could try to manipulate things that are going on regarding block producing. So that's what we want to avoid. It communicates with public nodes by forwarding basically blocks with transactions. It maintains a local copy. It forwards also this chain to the block producer or validator, who keeps his own copy, and multiple relays are basically being required to have some resilience. So in case I would have only one relay and that relay would go down, that means my block producer is not able to produce blocks because the chain or the blocks are not being forwarded to it. And this will hurt, of course, the people that are staking in the pool. So it's wise to have some certain resilience in case one of the relay nodes would go down. Another relay node is still active and is still forwarding these blocks to the block producer. To get to a situation where you have resilience, you need to basically instantiate different instances of these relay nodes in different geographical locations or data centers to reduce the chance that basically a relay node can go down, because a data center can go also down. So by spreading that geographically, basically you're reducing the risk. Then there is another option which you could choose for. You can also decide to run relays in private mode. That is basically meaning they are not exposed to the public and basically only connected to reliable nodes from which you know from what person they are. And then you could still produce blocks. but this is not highly contributing to the decentralization of the network. So why would you delegate in the stake pool? Well, first of all, participation in the network, securing the network, and supporting the decentralization of the network by having nodes in different locations and by providing a stake pool with a certain amount of stake, you're adding to the decentralization of the network. Another reason could be you like to invest or to speculate on the value increasement of the underlying digital currency. For example, now the return on stake is basically on your ADA is between 5 and 6% per annum. And well, if the value of the cryptocurrency basically increases, you're getting next to this 5-6%, of course, the increasement in value on your ADA. To delegate, you have to undergo a delegation process, which we will talk about in a moment. And there are some certain questions regarding the delegation cycle. When is your stake going to be active and at work for you? When can you expect rewards from a stake pool? And is it the responsibility of the stake pool paying you rewards year on year? Okay, next slide. So basically we are talking about delegators, and those delegators are staking their ADA into a stake pool. The owners of the stake pool initiate the stake pool and put pledge in it. And pledge is basically skin in the game of the stake pool owner. How much is the stake pool owner committed to this blockchain? And the pledge has another reason, which we'll tell in a moment. Next to that, the owner can also stake like a normal delegator in the stake pool. So the amount of ADA that is being staked in the stake pool has a representation as a percentage of the total ADA stake. And that means, well, there are multiple stake pools, and different delegators can choose in what stake pool to stake their ADA and get this 5 to 6% return on stake. So in that case, the total ADA stake and the percentage of the total ADA stake is basically the underlying reason for the protocol to say, well, on basis of the coin flipping protocol, this stake pool gets elected as leader and can basically start processing a block, validating it, and checking if everything is okay to receive a reward. Currently, there are like 1,400 stake pools active, and this is increasing over time. So then is the question, with what stake pool should I stake my ADA if you have basically ownership of the ADA digital currency? Well, there are different influencing factors in place. For example, how regular is the stake pool creating blocks? How much pledge has this stake pool basically has skin in the game? What is its fixed fee? What is its variable fee? Is it a single stake pool owner, or is it a stake pool owner that is running multiple pools? For example, can you reach out and contact the stake pool owner directly? Has it presence on social media, website? Is it contributing? Does it do marketing efforts? Or is the stake pool owner at all running the stake pool? Or is he taking it as a service, stake pool as a service? That means basically he is just letting somebody else run the pool and staking his ADA in it. And what are basically the plans of the stake pool owner related to contributing to the Cardano blockchain? So is it just running the stake pool, or is it also actively developing solutions on the Cardano blockchain? Let's have a look at the delegation process, how that's working. First of all, the stake pool operator has to register its stake pool into a registry after it configured and set it up. Yeah, this Stakepool registry is currently maintained by the Cardano Foundation. But this Stakepool registry, there will be multiple of them, because also Stakepool operators can basically run a registry. ADA owners can delegate their stake via a so-called wallet, and there are several wallets, but in this case, the default wallet of the Cardano blockchain is the Daedalus wallet, and from this wallet, they can choose the stake pool to which they want to delegate their stake to. And this delegation process is basically saying, well, you get the right from me to use my ADA ownership to increase the stake of the stake pool. The ADA is never leaving the wallet of the ADA holder. So it is not in the ownership of the stake pool. So basically, it's only a right that is being transferred to the stake pool. And once the delegator has chosen from the list that is coming from the stake pool registry a certain stake pool, then of course this right is being written to the ledger, and on basis of that right, the block and the chain basically decides also on basis of the total stake in the stake pool, if the stake pool gets elected as leader or block assigned, which it can validate. And once it has validated this block with transactions, it broadcasts the outcome to the network, where other nodes are basically validating if the outcome is correct. And once this is correct, the stake pool gets a reward. Next to this process, we have the delegation cycle, or when the delegator starts delegating. That needs to be done at the start of an epoch. And when that is done, at the end of the epoch, a snapshot is being taken. And on basis of that snapshot, in the following epoch, a reward calculation is done. And the reward calculation means basically that it is calculated how many rewards on basis of the amount of blocks that has been produced in the previous epochs. The stake pool should get a certain amount of rewards. And these rewards are being paid in the following epoch. So it means basically when you're staking in a certain epoch, before starting staking in an epoch, it takes 2 epochs before you're getting rewards paid. And this is a repeating process. At every end of an epoch, there's a snapshot being made, reward calculations are being done, and on basis of that, rewards are being paid. And this is an automatic process. There's basically no stake pool involved in the payment of the rewards. This is automatically done by the network. So ownership in a network can be done via digital currency, ADA, and they can be staked via wallets. The ownership of the ADA always stays under your control. Stake can be released at any moment in time. So your ownership in ADA is never locked up. So if I decide to stake today and decide to unstake my ADA the next day, that is plausible, but that's not plausible in most of the blockchains, because most of the time it's locked for a certain amount of days. In the Cardano blockchain, basically you will have always control over your ownership. You can stake via native wallet Daedalus or via partner wallet Yoroi, which has a mobile and a web wallet, or another third-party wallet, which is the ADA Lite wallet. All those wallets support staking, and of course there's a difference between hot staking and cold staking. Hot staking is basically making use of your public and private key in a recovery phrase and a password to protect your ownership. And cold staking is basically the same, but in this case you protect your ownership with hardware. And your public and private keys are not stored in software, but they are stored on the hardware device. And most of the time you're not making use of a password there, but of a PIN code. So looking at the stake pool, we talked about what the role is. Next to this, there are of course rewards involved, and there are fees involved, because the stake pool operator has to maintain certain hardware. And related to this hardware, the stake pool operator has cost. There are certain costs involved in staking in a stake pool. First of all, there's a fixed fee per epoch, which is being paid from the treasure. And we didn't talk about the treasure. Where is all these payments coming from? They are coming from the treasure. And that means that a certain amount of blocks that is being assigned as slot leader are assigned to, let's say, nodes of the Cardano network, which are under control by the Cardano Foundation. And in this case, 20% of the blocks go to the treasure. And on basis of that, there is a war chest being built. And from this war chest, there, the stake pools are being paid with a fixed fee per epoch. And that is basically should cover the cost of having this computation hardware available. And next to that, there's a variable fee involved, and that can be set by the stake pool operator, the same like with the fixed fee, whereas a minimum of 340 ADA per epoch. In case of a variable fee, that's basically to be decided by the stake pool operator to set, to cover basically his cost for marketing, operating, updating, and maintaining the hardware infrastructure. Why marketing? Of course, the stake pool operator also has to market this pool to attract new stake, because the more stake there is in the stake pool, the more chances to get elected like a leader, get more blocks, and basically produce more rewards for the delegators, and of course for the stake pool owner itself. I talked before about pledge. Pledge is mainly meant to avoid civil attacks. It's a commitment and investment of the stake pool operator to protect the network, and the pledge can also be adjusted by the stake pool operator. But in this case, as you can see by the arrows, the green is you can increase the pledge easily, but if you decrease the pledge, you will getting a penalty. Because basically you are saying, I'm reducing the amount of ADA to protect the network. Or you're reducing as a stake pool operator the skin in the game. Rewards, like I told, are being shared between the stake pool operator and its delegators. The delegator rewards are the total rewards the pool received minus the fixed fee minus the variable fee. And that is being shared on basis of the percentage of stake of the total stake in the stake pool and the stake rewards per epoch. So those rewards are automatically being paid out by the protocol and received in the wallet of the delegator at the end of the next epoch. Well, to have a stake pool set up, it's not enough, of course, because you have to maintain the whole thing. And for this, we have monitoring. There are several monitoring tools in place. You can choose your own monitoring, like I did, for example, on basis of Node export of Prometheus and Grafana. And you can alert on basis of that. You can use the default option that is provided in the Cardano node with this G-Live view, or you can choose any preferred monitoring tools like Elasticsearch, Lossless, Kibana, or even you can use shell scripting. There are several other community initiatives by Stakepool owners that made websites and mobile apps to basically to monitor the performance of a Stakepool. So what if you want to run your own Stakepool? What kind of knowledge do you need? Well, first of all, you need Linux knowledge. You need security knowledge. You need to have general interest in blockchain technology because there's a lot to read and to follow on basis of the developments that are taking place. You need several servers and a good internet connection with a fixed IP. And you have to think about costs that are being involved. For that, you get 340 ADA by 8 port. It can be a cloud provider server. It can be a ROC or Raspberry Pi or your own server. You need to set up the server. You have to set up a website. You have to set up monitoring. You have to make sure you have resilience in place. The cost of registration of a Stakepool is 500 ADA. And next to that, you need like 10 ADA for transaction fees for setting the Stakepool up. So like I said, you need several VPS and bare metals or Raspberry Pis or ROC Pis. You need certain tools like Haskell compiler, Cabal and Lipsodium to build basically the Cardano node and the Cardano CLI. The source code can be found in GitHub repository. The Cardano node basically has certain configuration files which you need to download. You have to create signing keys and certificates. And on a Stakepool, there is a key evolving period, basically, and that means that the certificate of the Stakepool expires at a certain moment, and you need to update that certificate. And that is done basically also to protect the pool from being hacked and certain transactions are being replayed. There is a command line tool via which you have to instantiate all these things, generating these certificates. So you have to compile that. You have to set up a certain architecture, and this is a sample on basis of Docker with a Docker Swarm, where you can say, well, I have several machines and I have a Cardano node basically, and that is being deployed on availability on basis of within a cluster. So you can choose for such an architecture. You can of course also install it natively, depending on your knowledge. And here is a sample of a setup. Basically a firewall in place, you have a reverse proxy in place, you have the Stakepools, you have the relay nodes, you have your wallets. You need to install software to synchronize your clock so that on all the nodes, basically the same clock is available. You need tools basically to set up and protect ports from being hacked. As you can see over here, there's a continuous threat on the internet that people are hacking into your servers. That means you have to protect all your services and your endpoints as good as possible to make sure that basically the block producer is always producing blocks and the relay nodes are always up. Okay, that's my presentation. If you like to know more about the Stakepool which I'm running, which is called AVPU, you can take up contact with me. Here you can find some reasons why to stake with us.
Okay, thank you, Ronald, for interesting presentation. Not only introduction, but also a bit in depth. Talking about Cardano, the price of a Cardano is not that high, and you talked about some 500 Cardano you need. It's very interesting to step in now.
Yeah, I think so. The network is being rolled out in production coming year. It's expected next half year. The reason for that is Cardano still has to do something related to the smart contracts, which they are going to deploy. But once that is finished, it's a proven basically way of development which they have done, very scientific, proven. It's peer reviewed by partners, so the quality of the chain is very good. Which I can see also from running a stake pool, because I've been in this adventure since early 2018, let's say, running multiple different nets, test nets, and well, the quality is increasing over time, and we really can look forward to something nice that is changing basically the situation in the blockchain as it currently is. Because what we can see, there are a lot of hard forks on basis of Ethereum and Bitcoin, where basically the development teams didn't build the solution from scratch up. And this is something that Cardano did. They validated everything. They took into considerations what are the flaws of Bitcoin, what are the flaws of Ethereum, and they really want to make something that is better and being the financial operating system of the future.
Okay, but talking about, you mentioned Ethereum, what is the main differentiator if you compare?
There are many main differentiators. Of course, it's a second layer solution. Like I said, Ethereum is running everything on one layer. This is causing the problems they currently have with the popularity. They cannot scale enough. There's a lot of DeFi solutions running on Ethereum, which have to pay a lot of transaction fees because of congestion in the network. And congestion is basically, it gets too many transactions, it cannot handle it, and the whole thing is stopping basically. And then on basis of raising the gas price, basically, you get your transaction through. Well, in a financial system, of course, that is killing.
I understand.
Especially if you're having something like a trading platform. Well, you cannot wait as a trader till the moment your transaction gets executed. Mm-hmm. That needs to be done instantly. So this is one of the problems that Cardano is solving by having a scaling solution in place on basis of side chains. Currently, they can already scale, handle, let's say, more transactions, while they even don't have sidechains in place. They will have sidechains in place. Next to that, it's supporting native tokens, and that means basically the token on Ethereum is a second-class citizen. So it's not running native on a chain like the Ethereum token, but you need to develop smart contracts for that. Smart contracts for minting the token, smart contracts for distributing the token, smart contracts basically for transacting the token. So this has a lot of development in place with all kinds of security risks on the smart contracts. Cardano has this native in its protocol. Tokens are first-class citizens. That means you don't need to have smart contracts to make a transaction for a specific token for your purpose, and you don't have to mint tokens on basis of a smart contract, etc., etc. So that makes it very easy to create your own token, also with limited cost, because the gas fees on the Cardano network are a fraction of the Ethereum transaction cost.
Okay, interesting. More information can be found also in your previous video about the introduction of Cardano, and I hope you will be back in the future to tell us more about this interesting blockchain.
Yeah, I'll keep following everything that's going on related to that. I just did a few days ago create the first native tokens on Cardano blockchain. So when there's something interesting, I'll for sure will let you know.
Okay, look forward to that. Thank you very much. Thank you also for watching at home or wherever you are. We will post more videos about blockchain technology, including Ethereum, Cardano, and other subjects every week. If you have any questions, please put them in the section below and we will come back on it. Also, you can subscribe to this channel to follow more on blockchain. Thank you.